guess the first item on the agenda is Maple Ave Development. And who's here for that?
Myself.
Okay.
And I brought the architect,
Okay.
Bill Merrigan, Steve Zaborski, and my partner, Cy Marcus, and myself.
Okay. If you'd like to, this is an informal on this, if you'd like to present where you're at and where you think
I'll
we
bring
would
you
like
up to
to go,
speed on some things.
please.
One of the main concerns that you had was the automotive, auto body. That was a concern,
Right.
and they had hoped that we could acquire it and do something with it. Steve Zaborski met, he went to the fellow that owns it home, and Steve, why don't you tell him what he said?
I met with Mr., I think it's Osterman,
Austin.
and at this point in time, he's a little up in the air. He's renovating his house, he's got a couple other projects. I asked him about selling the property, kind of referred me to his wife, who gave me a call last Friday, and she said that what her plans are is to possibly just give it to the kids later on. None of them are in the body business, so whatever they want to do with it later on is fine by her, but at some point, they're just gonna move it to them. So they're just up in the air, they haven't made a hard decision yet, but that's her best guess.
So basically, at this point, it doesn't look too feasible that you'd end up with that property in the short term anyway.
Not in the short term.
We may, their contamination from their site has come into our area that we did clean up 10 years ago, but there's a chain of ownership that could still give them a problem. I don't want to play that card. I think they addressed it. She didn't want to get involved in it.
Yeah, whatever, she just said she doesn't know what's there, and she didn't want to find out.
She knows. I gave them reports. It's a hot site. So they're looking at who knows what for cleanup costs. It could be very extravagant. And there is money available for it, but communicating with them is very hard. They call, but they're just no, we're busy with this, we're busy with that, and you don't get the feeling they want to do anything. So we are trying, and I will continue to try.
Okay.
Postman's always had trouble making a decision
Yeah.
on any
I know.
color to paint your car or whether to fix the dent. I know him quite well, I wouldn't mind talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be good if you continue
I will.
to keep the communications as open as you can keep them. but-
I will, I'm going to, I just wanted you to know that
Yeah.
we didn't ignore that. The other issue was that architect George O'Neill, we brought on, we had done some earlier renderings showing 130 units. We're down to about 90. You had asked us about thinning it out a little. We're down to in the high 90s,
High 90s with a potential 106 between.
but we've cut it off 30. So I just wanted you to know that. And George did the renderings, so
No, I guess that would be great. Okay, sorry to talk with you. And I have a few boards here. Can you just borrow that? I grabbed that other. Thank you. Try to give folks as much as a view as I can here. We can move around. Show it to you later. Just a little bit of an idea where we're going. Again, I'm George O'Neill with Gorman Richardson Lewis Architects. I'm also a resident from Holbrook. So when we were here last in late February, Steve Harvey, our site engineer, had also shown a preliminary layout with the idea of walking through the site plan here with the Legos building, North Franklin Street being here, the Legos building, as we refer to it, being right here. So the property comes down Maple. There's also a left turn that leads out to Linden, into that neighborhood here, and of course to the right to the animal shelter and then the former landfill off to the north. As you know, as I think you're familiar with right now, there's an empty lot behind the Legos building where a number of cars are being stored from the auto body shop. The large warehouse in this area here, and then there is a single-family split level down in this level, but this is primarily an open area right here. The site, as you know, drops off pretty suddenly right to the west there. So, as Leo had mentioned, when we came back, the initial concept, and it means this way, are for 3 new buildings, residential buildings. We had, the initial concept was about 133 units. But what we've done is we've looked at a different mix to try to reduce the density and also make it more marketable, more attractive, and a variety of types of units. So currently, just in terms of numbers, we have 3 buildings here. Each is currently shown as 4 stories. Building number 1 is primarily 1-bedroom units, so the total of 36 units on 4 floors. Includes a laundry room, and of course the 2 egress stairways as well as an elevator. So we developed the biggest change going from what we showed you last time to this is a little bit more development in terms of the unit layout and sizes and other ancillary spaces that are needed. The largest building is the building number 2, which is where the former, you can see the outline of the warehouse is approximately here with that 1-story addition down below, or to the south here. Primarily, this is mostly 2-bedroom units. There are 2 studios and about 4 1-bedroom units that are also sort of part of the mix on this particular building here. And then we have, as you know, the auto body shop is over here, and then there are other multi-family residential homes along North Franklin. Lastly, down furthest to the west of the site is Building 3. Here we have a total of 4 studios with a total count of only 6 studios in the complex, and 32 1-bedrooms, so they're primarily a 1-bedroom configuration. The parking, we've developed the parking around to be able to be a bit better than 1 parking space per unit. As we mentioned to you last time, we're looking for some relief from the 2 parking spaces per unit on there. So that's basically just the layout of what we have. We're currently at 106 total units for the 3 buildings. The Legos building, the intent is to keep the first floor as retail or some commercial establishment. There is a potential for maybe upwards of about 4 units on the second floor, depending upon how the development of the project goes. But the primary, residential section is right in the main buildings. The idea as far as the look and the feel, as you can see, trying to, looking at the bylaws talk about, modulating the roofscape, trying to have some visual interest in breaking down the facade of the buildings. But with the residential look, this gives you a better idea of the building itself, the individual building itself, with sort of a corner element that houses really the entry lobby as well as the elevator area, with tower feature. And within the living rooms, we're able to put in really French doors with not a balcony, because we find the balcony not as much, but we're getting to that idea of just trying to modulate the facade of the building with different material colors and materials and some bays, etc., just to create some visual interest and to bring the scale of it down. The image, you might say, this is coming from North Franklin with the Legos building on the right. It gives you a sense of what, what we can see now, that, a sense of a little bit of a neighborhood coming down into the area. With the, off to the right, that's still, even with the landfill as it is now, this sort of a rolling kind of landscaped area, and then depending upon what might happen down the road, some more development of some green space down in that area. So the idea is just to create a, you know, a nice residential area of apartments, and something that's gonna really take the place of, you know, what's there now in terms of a, you know, sort of a rough and tumble area as it is now with the warehouse. So what we're doing here, and this is really just first concept of, you know, developing it, we can, with the input from the town and, you know, looking at it in more detail, we can start to develop other options as well, especially on the architecture itself. But the intent was try to get something that is pretty current, this type of building, you know, it's a multi-story residential building, but there's really a lot of opportunities with the, you know, the window types, the material types, et cetera, to make it an attractive project for the town.
It looks interesting. Maybe could you swing just one of the renderings, just so that the rest of the,
Yeah.
see a little bit of it? Just kind of show it to them, yeah.
Swing it too far.
Yeah, this room is a little tight for that, but good. So have you started to get into what waivers you might be looking for at this point? Have you started thinking in those terms too, or
Well, I
how
think,
close to the new zoning is it gonna meet and all that?
right, yeah. Well, I know that with special permit, the 4 stories is required with a special permit, so that would be one of the things we're
Right.
looking at. The parking ratio with looking for something, you know, a little above 1 per unit versus the 2 that's currently called for. And there, again, we're just trying to balance out the numbers and the available space that we have. As far as the waivers go, I think that those are the primary things. I think the mix too, as far as unit type, I think we originally at one point talked about, you know, maybe more studios, more 1-bedrooms. I think one of the things we found with the 2 bedrooms is that, one, it's a more marketable type of unit, but also it reduces the density of it. I think there's, you got a wider variety of tenant options, you know, with the 2-bedroom. So I think it gives a, you know, a better opportunity for, you know, creating, you know, attracting the different types of folks that would come in.
And what portions would include commercial?
Right now, the commercial is limited to the Legos building, on that, just because of the, that's the current use that it has, and really was thinking of maintaining, you know, that use there. But as far, yeah, the buildings themselves are multifamily residential, which is, you know, considering the, you know, we're trying to, you know, bring people into the downtown area so that the shops, et cetera, that are here, especially along the main drag, are maybe more frequented. I think bringing the commercial down deep into that area can be a little problematic with, you know, just getting.
We have trouble getting stores for the Lego building. We know it's not modernized, which we would do, we'd come up with a nice clean concept, but we have trouble filling those up. I mean, I'm just giving people rents $200 a week for the restaurant to operate, and he's either a good liar or somewhere in between. I think he's probably doing better than he says, but not a lot. I mean, we either put him out of business or not. It's difficult to figure a way to get retail down there because there's retail space available on the main street. So subsequently, it would be, it might look nice, but I think it would stay empty for a long time. And I just don't know who would attract down there. It's a tough street right now. We've got a vacant parking lot that's been dirt, and we've got a warehouse that's, you know, it's probably 100 years old, and it's obsolete, and it covers almost the whole lot. And in the rear lot where we're talking, the 3rd building, we have dumpsters in a parking lot. So and we're next to a landfill and a rescue area for pets. So we're trying to brighten it up, and I explained the last time we were here, we've been in Quincy, and I don't want to say, you know, Quincy's smarter than Holbrook or better, but we've been in Quincy for a long time. We've been downtown. The apartment buildings are starting to come in. The stores that we own are filling up wonderfully. You have to bring the people in to create some of what you're looking to create, or nothing gets created. For 30 years, they've done nothing downtown Quincy except talked about what they were going to do. And we've got Asian nail people, hair salons, bar rooms, and, you know, mom and pop stores that go in and out of business all the time. Now you can't touch the space down there because they're putting a couple hundred apartments. And at the end of it, I think there's going to be 600 new apartments downtown. And it's the concept that's working to revitalize the obsolete downtowns of old across the country.
So, George, I know it's, you know, still kind of early, but as far as support equipment, emergency generator, MEP support, I don't know, cooling tower, what, any thoughts about where that would go? And are we gonna start cluttering up the roof with, you know, what are we gonna look like as this gets more developed?
No, good question. Well, I think as far as the mechanicals, those are the biggest things as far as what kind of equipment we'd have in need. I think we have to get tighter into what type of system we want to use, whether it be unit ventilators or rooftop, combined rooftop units. I think the intent would be to primarily keep them, you know, away from view and, you know, possibly away from the grade. I think if we looked at them on, you know, the roof, we could understand that screening is an important issue. I think right now, even this issue here, there are some, whether we keep it flat, whether we do create some parapets that start to create some screening. I think we just need to get down the road a little bit further to make some ideas about what would be the most beneficial, efficient type of mechanical system. And then to that end, you know what I mean, okay, where are we going to put this equipment so you don't have this nice thing, and then all of a sudden, kaboom, you have a big air handling unit up on the roof. So that'll be an important...
The aesthetics will be very important to us. We're not going to look for a product that people pull up to and feel uncomfortable, just don't feel gaudy. So there'll be, whatever screening was required, we'll make sure and put it in to your satisfaction. And we can make that a condition of whatever we do.
Sure.
I think one of the things actually the site has going for it too is it has some topography. It's fairly mild where we're building, but nonetheless it's still a downslope. And so there's some options for, you know, as we develop the site too. You know, when you get in, yeah, this, you know, when you develop the site here, as it coming down, you know, there'll be some plateauing in a sense with some, you know, opportunities, some retainage, nice retaining walls. So there's going to be some variation in the landscape. We talked about, you know, the idea of having sidewalk that would just sort of create a nice streetscape coming up and heading out to North Franklin, because the idea of trying to get to these people out to, you know, North Franklin to use it. And, you know, it just, I think, together with some hardscaping, good landscaping, and then eventually whatever happens out here, which could be terrific, you know, I think it'd really create a very nice area. Right now, what we're trying to do is to, you know, create sort of a streetscape, you know, with the facades along the street, with the setbacks that are required. A little bit of an end view, as you can see from the rendering that I'm covering up. You know, that there's a, you know, the building with sort of an element here, how that element gets developed can be sort of nice, so that as you're driving by, you know, there's some focus and something like that. So I think with the landscaping, so the somewhat sort of, in a sense, terracing it down of the site itself with some good architecture on it, it'd be a very nice, vibrant space that makes sense. It's not dead end, you know, we can deal with the, you know, the outlet of Maple coming out to Linden, however that works best, we can work on that. So I think it would be quite a, you know, uptick in terms of our quality of space.
And that, from Maple Ave is one way?
I haven't seen the signs, is it?
Yeah.
No, it's just,
It's two-way.
It's a two-way street.
yeah.
Maple Ave or Maple, well, there's Maple Street, but I thought Maple Ave ran into a one-way, no?
It runs into Lindale, which is a one-way.
That's the one.
Okay.
Lindale's a one-way.
Okay.
Linden, you come in and then you have to go around this way
Okay.
to Linden. You can't go back up to, no, you go up to Plymouth Street. You know what I'm talking. This comes to Linden, Linden comes around. to-
Oh, so once you get on to Linden, then you're kind of stuck, but Maple Ave is two-way street, so you can go any way you want to go.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you come back.
Anything else?
Just a thought as far as building one, you know, where you have Legos as your commercial part of things, any way of maintaining like that first floor in building one into like a little bit more commercial, and then have apartments above it, to give you a little
Would
bit
you
more?
be comfortable if we took the face that you're seeing from, right there, George, if you could show them?
This is here?
Yeah, going across, if we put office, we could put glass it in and make it office space. If that, I just don't feel we'll get stores there. I mean, I've tried a lot of stuff in Holbrook. We've got the Card House, and we've been trying to rent that for a long, long time, and nobody wants it. I just can't, the turns, especially at the Lego building, is kind of a difficult turn. It's not, you know, an easy crossover for traffic going from Holbrook into Braintree. It's a tight turn, but we'd be glad to put rental office. We can clean that up and give it, if you'd like, you know, that feeling that there's an office in there. We could do that, we'd be glad to. We'll do a rental office there for the project and a management office. If that's something that would make you feel more comfortable, we'll be glad to.
Well, part of the intent, obviously, was to get more commercial too, with the mixed-use overlay. And I understand that this particular area, the commercial application may not be as
Feasible.
feasible as it would be right on the.
On the main drag, we would have done that, exactly that. This is just, you know, and then you've got that auto body sitting there, which is not pleasant to us either. We're hopeful, we let him rent space from us right now. He's a nice kid that rents it, and we let him use the ground across the street. That'll all change. So maybe it'll become less valuable as far as a body shop rental place. That could happen also. And I've been chasing this guy, so everybody knows, for 3 years now, to try to get him to just sit down and talk. I meet him in a parking lot, he won't even come in for coffee. No, he's just a nervous person. I was in the middle of a sentence, he drove off, and then drove back. I don't know what else.
He was afraid of the middle power.
I don't know. I thought I was dreaming when he drove off, but anyways, he came back.
I mean, it's obviously a good concept as far as, you know, what's already down there. I mean,
Oh,
that's no brainer, you know? You know, in a perfect world, you'd love to see more commercial, but I know the situation's tough down there. And, you know, you've been working at the auto body place next door, and, you know, I mean, you look at that and you compare it to, you know, but you just also worry about, you know, as far as who would you think would be living in those one store?
I think local people. I found my experience in Holbrook, we used to own those 4 families up on, across from the Dalton Club. Local people, they were 1 bedrooms, 16 units. I got nice local people, working people. I think a lot of young people from the town would move into a place like this. It's not gonna have a project or a development feeling. It's not gonna have that, we're not looking at a Section 8 housing. We're looking at, you know, affordable, working class housing in a blue collar town. And that's who I think is gonna come there.
What would you expect, I mean, what would you be looking for as far as rent?
You know, probably from 1,000 up to 1,300 or 1,400. We would probably design it for separate heat and air conditioning units in each unit, so the tenant would pay their own, and that just makes it a more balanced place as far as abuse or problems, and it's a much more efficient. It'll all be self-contained. You know, it would be upscale in the sense that it would be a new construction. We have no problem, within reason, of letting people get involved in the skin on the building and the ideas they have and what they'd like to see. You know, we have to draw a line somewhere, but I thought the idea of the balconies, when George and I talked about it, that's the European style, where you open the doors inward and the room actually becomes the outdoors. And the balcony, you don't have bikes on it or Christmas trees or just nonsense. No one ever sits out on balconies, they just use it this would be smarter looking. It'll have a smart look to it. And we can work on the screening. I know what you mean, and I personally find it very offensive to pull up and see a lot of mechanical stuff. I think it's terrible. So we'll come up with some type of a colonial screening to keep it in the motif of what's up there. And again, we can make it a condition, and we look for input. We look to work together, not to mix it up at all. We'll improve that street and that neighborhood tremendously. And those people will shop and trade in the stores in that area. And we're near to a lot of stuff. I mean, that's transit, it's a mile to the train station. I mean, it's a good spot.
Yeah.
People will like that.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of positives to it.
Yeah.
Tim came down to Quincy 2 weeks ago. We took him around to projects we have and some we work with, just to show him what we're capable of and what we have done in downtown Quincy with housing. And I would say you weren't, not looking for it, you're saying you were impressed, but it was clean, good design, and we kept it up.
It was quality. The building
Yeah,
was
we have
quality.
nice quality stuff. We're not looking to get involved in junk.
In general, I think it looks good. I guess my only comment is that it's too bad there wasn't some way to meld some more commercial into it. But I understand the issues that you're running into too. So, but if there could be at least office space on,
Well, I mean, would you like a senior center? Would you like something put in the building that we can give to you? That we can say this is for the town? It's a covenant, that you have I know you have senior centers. We could put in a place where people could go whatever days a week, and we'd be glad to give that to the town. Something that would be a trade-off.
something like that.
Something
the
like
town-
that, wasn't high impact. You don't want,
No.
you don't want a boys club or
No,
something there,
no.
but something that isn't high impact, but is something that will benefit it and make people feel, I think, even more comfortable if that was there. We can do something like that.
Okay.
We're not opposed to that.
If you wanted to talk with Tim and the selectmen about that piece of it,
Yeah.
I think that would make some sense. And if that became something that was offered during the permit process, I think that
Yeah, that's
could be
fine.
helpful. Yeah.
We're also willing to give up 2 acres of land that we have in the rear to the town,
Mhm.
that abuts the landfill, and will benefit you. We're not looking to keep it, it's not part of I showed it to you, that 2 acres. And we'll just we'll deed it to the town for $1.
What's that, behind building 3?
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
Where it drops off to the rear.
Well, it's a piece of land that was contaminated by your fill and your dump.
Oh, from the dump and from the DPW building?
Yeah, we just as soon give it to you.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts of, I know you got your unit mix pretty much set there, but have you given any thought to like penthouse units of maybe a little bit larger, to give it a little bit more of a variation in the development so that it's not all a stack of,
It doesn't change your aesthetics at all, and we find that the units that are being built today, unless you can get $2,800 to $3,500 a month, you just can't afford to do it. And the old-fashioned cookie cutter, nice kitchen, modern bathroom, hardwood floors throughout. People are happy with that, young married people or older folks that may want to retire and sell their home. As long as it's clean and well maintained, they're happy with that. I mean, getting into that bigger stuff, it's sexy, but it really doesn't, it prohibits what you can do. The cost per foot gets very prohibitive. We like a smaller one-bedroom, smaller two-bedroom, and just a nice studio. We found they work fine. The quality of it and the cleanliness of it and how the project itself is maintained works for that. And I appreciate what you're saying. It's just, economically, it makes no sense. And I don't know who you're gonna attract with that. You know, you're gonna end up with a unit that's got 3 kids or 4 kids because it's big. That's not what we're looking to do here. We're not looking for a lot of kids. There isn't a lot of open area for them to play in, and we're not looking to bring that in. We're looking to bring in working people that want a nice, new, clean place and don't have that feeling that they're in a project. That's why it's a 3-phase.
Leo, is the house across the street still in the picture?
We can work that out, yeah. Yeah, the card house. You can work something over there, yeah.
There be any interest in building one, if you, let's just say in building one, that, you know, you had some type of senior center that you kinda had worked out in the lower portion of that building. And you said that there's about 36 one-bedroom units. Do you think there'd be anything for like maybe the second or third, or even on that same basis for like, I think it'd be kinda neat being 60, having your own place, maybe 65, maybe a little older, whatever, having an apartment. Then if you wanna go downstairs to the,
A common
Senior-
room, yeah, like
to the
that, a
seniors.
social room.
well, say that's where your senior center
Yeah,
was.
well, that's what we could come up with a very nice looking, and you'd get exposure so it wouldn't be lost on that side of the building, where people would drive down and see it, and they'd feel comfortable in it, and it would give that commercial feel to the site itself. We could get nice signage up there and work it out. We'll come up with a size that you feel comfortable with, and we'll let George see if he can carve it out of there.
I think what, Paul, you're thinking in terms of having a building or a floor of a building be sort of designated for like the over 55 or over a certain age, and I don't,
It's a tricky market.
Yeah.
You could get jammed up bad with that. You build it and you can't get it, what happens? I mean, it's a handcuff. It's not it's not both wrists, but it's on one wrist, and you could get jammed up with something like that. I don't know if Holbrook, you know, for us, there hasn't been a lot of information that we could find that would give us comps for Holbrook, because Holbrook has been such a staid town.
Yeah.
A lot of things haven't happened.
I
You
just-
don't have a series of 55 and older and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, I know that Dick Bucieri was trying to get it up in, that land he had up in your town. I think Simon Chan's got it now. And they were talking 55 and older, and that, I thought was a nice site for it. They just couldn't get the interest of showing that they weren't gonna build something and then be stuck with it. And then you're going back to the town on your hands and knees begging for relief,
Yeah.
because you're gonna go broke.
But what I'm getting at though is maybe your first floor would be something you could utilize for just like 55 and over or something like that. And then your second and third area,
Can you say that again?
You could actually work with that when people come in to rent. I mean, you could say, you know,
yeah,
it's a little easier if you come in here, if you,
right.
let's say somebody has a knee problem, what have you, not tell them you can put them where you want them, but you can show them a little more.
Right.
Something that's easier, put them in the first floor or the second floor. It is an elevated building.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking like, you know, say someone loses a spouse, you know, and now they're in this house. The house is hard to maintain. They pop into something like this with the sale of their house. They've got a little bit of money. They go downstairs, there's a senior center for them, you know, the Holbrook Senior Center. You know what I mean? I think that's to me, that's kind of interesting to me.
I think it's interesting, but I also think that this gentleman, Mr. Sidhout, is planning on over 55 with accommodations
For something
other
like that
people
too.
Right.
to enjoy the room and pool and et cetera.
One problem is if you tried to have too much of that in here, you could have parking issues.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was saying building one, because you could use that back portion, it looks like.
It would be tough, Paul, to get commitment,
Yeah, I'm just
even
curious.
from a bank, to finance something like that, because it's speculative, and it's just speculative.
It might be something that you could work into your marketing plan and not have it as a restriction.
We would love to have retired over 55 people rent.
And if
That would be the target we'd be looking for. But if they're not there and we need to go to younger people, you know, you have to deal with the market. And it's been very hard for us to identify a market in Holbrook.
I think the overall concept is very interesting. Anybody else have any questions on the board? Anybody in the audience, if you have any questions? I'd encourage you to move ahead and get to the point where you're ready to actually submit. Obviously, there's other things that we'll need, and drainage and all
Oh,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I understand that.
But I think that, I think the basic concept is one that I think the board is looking at as a positive.
Thank you. Do you have a senior center now?
We do.
Yeah.
And it's in that cluster across from you?
Across the street.
Across the
That's
street.
correct.
And is it a nice facility?
Not particularly, but.
I mean, it's okay, but it's just tight, it's small now.
What's small? Do you have any idea how many square?
I'd have to, I don't know, I can get that though.
Is it 2 floors?
No.
One
Those
floor?
two tables there, these tables in a straight line would be hitting the walls.
Oh, all
I mean,
right.
they do the best with what they have.
We
you
could
know.
give you a very nice, open, put some shade, put some awnings there. We could make it very specific so people would be comfortable and the town would be proud to have a place where the people could go and do whatever they do in your senior. And maybe with a more open, newer feel, they'd become more interested, more people might participate.
Yeah.
So I'll work with Tim on that and George to come up with a square footage that you would feel would be good. And we'll, maybe you have somebody in your senior organization that could sit with us and give us some ideas of we'd put a handicap bathroom in, you know, water bubble or things like that, and they could give us some specific ideas of what they'd like, and we could work on it.
That sounds like a really good idea.
Well, I mean, we'll throw in the furniture if you work with us. And replace it every year.
And
Keep talking. Keep this meeting going.
you know, and from a marketing point of view, it could be good for you too.
I think
mean,
it would be-
You know,
I
if you
think it
have
would be
that
helpful.
center there, you could draw more
I think
of
it-
the retired.
I think it would be, is that the building with mostly one bedrooms?
Yeah,
George, the first one?
Yeah, the first one is,
Yeah,
yes.
so that would work out fine.
yeah.
That could be the draw. And it might, and if it isn't, if it works out in a kind way, that's fine too.
All right, any,
And, you know, I know I've said this before, but if you could keep working the auto body shop angle, because I really think that has an impact on the type of folks that we're going to attract to these buildings, you know.
We couldn't agree with you more. We couldn't agree with you more. And if we get it, we'll come back to you, to put up another building there with some retail. We'd be looking for it, you know, because that could get, and again, you know, it's one thing to sit here and say, we'll do anything, but I'm gonna draw a line to tell you, who knows what it's gonna cost? It has to make some economic sense or we go out of business. Things have to make sense it's gotta be run like a business. I think we can get to them eventually.
You know, it's gonna work a little bit, that fellow has a lot of cars that works there now. And that parking lot across the way where that #1 building's gonna be, if you went down there, you'll see it's full.
Yeah.
He's gonna lose all that, which means it's gonna hurt his business to a point.
yeah,
He might just have to move, somebody else is gonna come in, they're gonna have a hard time renting it again. There's not enough room for them to operate properly. At that point, like Leo says, he doesn't want to beat him up about it, but
He's got a big
they might have to
contract.
do something.
He's got a contract with, Quirk has a auto auction in Quincy.
Yep.
So Quirk sends 30 to 50 cars down every Monday that they've bought in the auction.
To get
And he marks
fixed
up the
up,
cars,
yeah.
what he wants fixed on them. The kid's got quite a thing going, he told me it's very lucrative. He's gonna lose that.
Because he won't be able to keep that
He
many
won't be able to
cars.
keep that volume hanging around. Because we're gonna hope, if this goes through, that we'll get some help on enforcing any problems on the street.
Any place else in town you could build a new auto body shop?
There is space that I'm aware of.
Is he aware that you have this
I've talked
project
to
you're
him about
proposing,
it,
and
yeah.
that it's, you know, might not be imminent, but
He's a,
it's
you know,
gonna
he
have
is,
a-
he's a young guy with his nose to the ground. He probably works 12, 15 hours a day. And he's a great guy, does great work. He's so busy working. I mean, just to get a conversation going with him. He's sanding while you're talking to him. He's just a hard-working guy, he's a nice guy. But I think if I can get to pigeonhole him one more time, there's a couple of places that were brought up I could talk to him about that maybe would make sense. And I think of the other guy, the owner now, I think he's so skittish that if he felt some adversity or pressure, that the place was empty, nothing, you know, nothing wrong, but just the place is empty, they're doing stuff around me, I got a problem. And I am gonna go to him about the contamination. I gave him the report, he knows what's there. I gave him the report, I said, this is what the report says. There were oil trucks out back there a long time ago, somebody had there, and they just dripped oil forever. It's out there.
If he's gonna give the building to his kids in future days, he's also gonna be giving him some contamination.
Yeah, he's gonna give him a headache,
He's
yeah.
gonna give him a headache, he's not leaving them.
Yeah,
I mean, he's told me, he and his wife both said that, not that it's old, but they're in their early 60s, and they're gonna just start to relax a little more, not take as much on. I mean, his house was really in a, he was all over the place as far as what rooms were being worked on. He had me through the house. He's got a lot going on in his life, other than the body shop. So,
Eating dinner's complicated for him.
yeah.
I mean, he's not a guy that can,
Yeah.
he can't handle anything. He's a nervous man. So we'll try to make him more nervous, see what we can get done.
All right, well, I think that, you know, as you pull together the more details of the plan and you're ready to actually submit, I think obviously we'll have, the engineers will have to be looking at all the drainage and all those issues and that stuff, but that's.
Well, I believe Bill's gonna be representing us,
Okay.
and George will be the architect, and they know how to submit things, so
Yeah.
we'll work
Yeah.
through them on it, and that way they'll be lead people.
Good.
If I, sorry to, but
No.
just one last thing, that, you know, I understand the penthouse concern, but it seems like the units that are facing west probably will have some of the better views, you know, because they're a little bit elevated, and just, if you could just think a little bit about doing something to elevate, again, my concern is that if we just go and, again, clean hardwood floors, the nice finishes, I get it, but if there could be something that would help differentiate it so that it's not just a stack of the cookie cutter. I just think that if you could push it a little bit, it would be nice to see if you could get some mileage out of some of the corner units or something to, I don't know, not to say that there's gonna be like the upper echelon here, but you know, you could have some signature units that could be pretty much
Well,
sought
we-
after, you know?
And again, we're agreeable to anything reasonable. We'll look at it, but one of the reasons that you do the stack units and the cookie cutter is, once you start changing things, you're changing pipelines, wiring, carrying walls. I mean, there's a reason that things are done that way. Maybe not as interesting a piece of real estate or architecture as when you go into an old home where everything's different, but to change them is very complicated. But we'll talk about it with George, and I'll try to come up with a few units that give you that wow factor. Maybe we can do that. We'll lose a unit or two. And
Well, I wouldn't say lose anything. I mean, like, if you're looking at building 3, I don't know if the egress stair has to be at the very extreme, or if you pulled it in by a unit, then that corner unit becomes, you know, a little bit more. I mean, instead of just having the south facade, you got the south facade and the west facade. You got that whole corner. You're not changing any plumbing or anything. You're just changing, what are the outside corners?
Well, we can also do, and we talked about a possible, on that building, a possible cantilever on the top floor going out, which would increase the size of the unit, depending on how large a cantilever we can engineer. And that could look nice, and it wouldn't have that bump out look in the front, it would be in the rear.
In the rear,
We could expand those units, maybe give it more glass, so we will get on that.
Good. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Well, we appreciate you
Thank you
coming
very
in,
much.
and we look forward to having you back when you're ready to.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll talk to Tim. I'll give you a call.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, thank you. Nice seeing you.
Yeah,
You have to do something, because if it just becomes an extrusion, then
There's
people,
where to go.
they start, they get into the mindset of, you know, there is no, you know, they say, but all of a sudden, it's like, you know, you give somebody the,
Right.
they start driving like, hey, I'm gonna call the cops.
Next on the agenda is Weymouth Street Village Housing 55 plus. Mr. Siddall.
I had to go upstairs to watch it. I couldn't see.
Oh,
Once a week or once a walk. So it's like.
hello, good greeting.
Thank you.
My name is Siddharth, and I'm a resident of Bolton from the last 27 years. And I live in 1 Siddharth Lane, and in the town I built the small subdivision on Siddharth Lane. And I also built the police station, which is a 2 street, and I had the fire stations here before.
Yep.
This is the project I'm coming in front of the town. The property is owned by the Siddharth family, and it's 52 acres. And we're looking for over 55 senior housing. In the drawing, sir, everything is complied with the zoning bylaw, which is a 100-foot setback from the property line, which you can see the all dotted lines, which give you the 100 feet all around. Also like to put all the buildings are out of wetland. Out of 100-foot buffer zone, we are out of the 100-foot buffer zone. We have enough, approximately 2-car parking per unit. The zoning requires 4.2 per acre. We are requesting variance for 6 per acre. And with me at the moment, I have our site engineer, Mr. Brian, who will be taking over and is going to explain to you about the project.
Okay.
And also, if you have any questions, he is going to ask you. I request Mr. Brian to please take over.
Right, very good.
Good evening, my name is Brian Dugashin, I'm a civil engineer, I work with BSC Group, and I'm here representing the Siddharth family. What you see before you is 2 parcels of land, which this one's approximately 17 acres, and the other piece, the more easterly piece, is approximately 34.3 acres. Just to give you your bearings, we're very close, we're just west of the Weymouth line and actually the tri-corner, I guess, Braintree, Weymouth and Holbrook. As Mr. Siddharth said, what he'd like to do is to develop an age-restricted 55 and older property under a special permit using the Village Housing District requirements. The property itself is zoned residential 1, which would therefore be, this would be an option to us. Right now, what we have laid out for you is a total of 9 buildings, including a community center. And it's a mixture of 36 or 42 units per building. I want to stress it's very conceptual in nature at this point. And honestly, the building footprint is one that I've used on a similar project that I'm permitting right now in the town of Yarmouth. So it's, we've not engaged an architect yet, so we're very preliminary. The survey itself, the existing conditions that you see, has all been flown by an aerial. We still have a lot of work to do on the property. We need to run a traverse and do a boundary survey, as well as delineate all the wetlands. Wetlands on the 34-acre parcel were previously delineated, and for the purpose of developing this conceptual plan, we just used what was done previously. But on this 17-acre parcel, this has not been delineated. So one of the first things that we would be doing is to do a complete wetland delineation of both, of the 50 acres, as well as running a boundary survey around the entire property. So right now, the plan that we're showing has 324 units. And as you know, the VHD requirements are 2 spaces per unit. I think for senior housing, that seems to be, I think it's reasonable to request a reduction in that, and so we would be looking for that. Right now, the plan shows almost 2 spaces per unit, which I was just trying to demonstrate what we could physically fit, but a lot of things have to be engineered still on the site, and I think practically speaking, that's too many spaces for this number of units. As well as things that are going to be very important, emergency vehicles, making sure we have the proper turning radius and fire trucks can get in and maneuver around the site without having to do a 5-point turn, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of that work still has to be developed. At this point, we wanted to just present what we have, at this point, what we were thinking, and kind of get your feedback on it. A couple other things I would like to point out. Our intent anyways is to stay completely outside of the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland resource areas. But again, until we've physically delineated those, we can't say for certain that we'll be able to do that. The plan that you see before you, with the exception of this oversized turnaround back here, does meet that. In addition, we tried first attempt to stay completely outside of the 100-foot buffer as required by the VHD. The plan before you, this building in this corner of the site is probably it's approximately 50 feet. So in this scenario, we would be looking for some relief on that. There is an existing power line easement which runs east to west across the property. So that would involve obviously a crossing. And right now what we propose is one section over here, so we would have one curb cut off Weymouth Street and then a second curb cut here. This curb cut you'd be able to travel, we could fit in an access drive that would connect this portion of the property over to this portion and still stay outside of the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetlands, as well as staying outside of the electric easement. This property over here, we really couldn't do that unless we were to construct something and permit that over the wetlands, but that's a pretty vast distance, so I don't think that's really going to be part of it. Some other, I think Mr. Siddharth passed out to you a list of the development program at this stage, and we would like a lot of other amenities which we're not showing at this stage, but we will, as we get into it, we'll refine this concept and add them. It would be a private development, so, we're not proposing any mixed use in terms of commercial. All the amenities that we would propose would be, for the use for the residents who live there. Some self-storage facilities, maybe even some garages, as well as some outdoor recreational areas, maybe some walking trails, things like that, and there are a few others that are listed on the sheet for you, but be happy to answer any questions and certainly receive any feedback that you have on the relief that we would be seeking.
The, obviously, like you just said, I think that, like, you're showing a community center, but you're not showing like any commercial space or those sorts of things yet. Is that?
Correct. Well, we wouldn't propose any commercial space here.
On the list says it will.
Oh, okay. Where's the Facebook showing stuff?
So I think what the Siddharth family is kind of proposing is something similar to, like a Linden Pond. So I believe, so like maybe in one of these areas where they're gonna build, the clubhouse area, there might be a doctor's office in there or.
The community clubhouse.
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I'm assuming it's something like that as opposed
Oh, yes.
to
As
another
Linden
building.
Pond, yeah.
Correct. Amenities that would be for the residents, though, I guess that's the differentiation there.
So basically, it would be like an office that a doctor could use when he was seeing people from this development, not an office where he would have normal office hours.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Yeah, so we just like to have the doctor's office in kind of a facilities to the.
For the
people-
residents.
For the resident only, yes.
Yeah, and the same thing with a beauty salon, there may
That's
be a
correct,
beauty
yeah.
salon that would be open for a certain number of times for the residents to come use as opposed to a separate.
Exactly, Linden Pond, they have like a little small 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
and cafe or water or sodas or,
Yep.
and because if kids come and visit their grandparents, there's something out there, just for, quick hour or two, whatever the services are, and ATM. I saw there was a little banking too in Linden Pond. They have a little, counter for banking as well.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, it makes
Hingham
sense.
Savings is there, actually.
Okay.
So I went visiting once, and it was very nice,
Yeah.
that whole concept, that everything is right there.
Should I mention to you about the garages?
Sure, that's another,
Which I have not shown on the drawings, which I was talking to my chief engineer. We should have small spots where we can put the small garages for some people likes to keep their cars in garage.
Yeah,
So if we can get maybe 40, 50 spots
Yeah.
where they can put the individual garage so that in case if they like to use, some people are very fussy about the cars.
yeah, no, I think that's a good idea.
And that will give enough space for the community center. If somebody's having a little birthday party or something,
yeah.
there's enough parking as well. So, the garages and then, just under 2 parking per apartment, that's ample parking there.
Well, the other thing, that's, again, I know it's just conceptual at this
Yeah.
point, but you're mentioning single-family homes on your
Okay.
list.
Yeah,
Single
it will be,
family.
it will be all there, sir. When the architect will draw that, it will be compliant with
That's
the.
my request for me to move there. Because I've been saying, I need to consolidate into a 2-3 bedroom house, and this would be his opportunity to move me there. Yeah.
That's okay.
So just a few, not too many, just a few, because the main target is for over 55 condos, apartments.
Yeah.
But
You want to just explain about the golf field again? That you.
the golf field would be, just a minimum
We will see,
range,
sir,
not
how
a
much
huge,
open
huge,
space we
but,
have.
yeah,
Maybe we can make it just shooting range or some, maybe have a 9
9 hole.
hole.
So it would be nice.
That's in the back side, I was looking for the setback of 50 feet so that I can comply with these things.
This is the old pig farm, right?
Yes. Actually, I was looking here. They didn't mention the piggery in there, huh?
I guess not.
Oh, yeah,
I remember it when it burnt.
yeah, yeah, okay.
You know, I think the concept is very reasonable.
I think just to, the Siddharth family has, they came to the Economic Development Committee
Yeah.
two weeks ago, and I think the response from that group to them was, you know, in favor of them coming forward
So it's
to
pretty
the
positive.
planning board,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they felt comfortable about this particular project, and
We have lived here for many years, so, you know, it's like, before you know the town is over, nothing is happening, so
Yeah.
this will attract everyone.
Yeah.
Like Weymouth, Braintree,
Right.
you know, whoever, because it's very centralized, very centralized, and
It's a good location for
very,
it's far-
very
it's far enough
desirable location.
outside of
as
the
such.
town that it's
Yes,
quiet.
it is quiet, yeah. It's a community, you know, privacy in itself.
I kind of felt good about it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I know as a part of the Economic Advisory Board, for the presentation, I think it's a great location
Yeah.
for an over 55 community. I think it's, you know, I'm sure it's gonna be well done in terms of the design. I like the way it's spread out. It's kind of tucked away at the same time. And, you know, I think it's the kind of growth that we want in town. I think it's smart growth.
In a very underused area.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the concept is a good one. Obviously, it comes down to the details.
Right.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah, I think it's nature at its best there, you know, because forever, whenever we drive, because I live on Weymouth
Right.
Street, and there are trucks parked there, and obviously, you know, they're hunting and whatnot,
Right.
so there's a lot of nature,
yeah,
which would be, you know, nature at its best there.
So we do, obviously, we have a lot of work to do before we come back to you, but just wanted to get your, preliminary feedback on that. One of the other things which I did want to mention, this is approximately 51.5 acres of land. And based on the 324 units we're showing, that would be a ratio of approximately 6.3 units per acre. You know, again, something that we're gonna have to discuss internally. There's gonna have to be a balance, obviously, of the unit count versus including some of these amenities that,
right.
we may end up having to trim back a little bit on the unit count if we're, depending upon how much, of these amenities that we want, just for spatial reasons. So
Where you're running into wetlands too.
that's right, and right, I mean, this could,
Yeah, and once you get it flagged, I mean, that was probably done quite a while ago.
it was, and there was an order of conditions, when, do you remember when that order of conditions was?
Yes, there was an order of condition was given out, I think in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, once you have that, that's gonna tell you a lot more about what you can really do.
That's right.
This particular project is out of conservation jurisdictions because I'm still maintaining a 100-foot buffer zone.
Yep.
And I'm out of the 100-foot buffer zone, but we will still file with the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
One thing we definitely will need to look at, and I shouldn't say at this point, but we could definitely be looking for a Mass DEP sewer connection permit. We would propose to connect to the sewer that's located down there, it's stubbed out, pump station there on Weymouth Street. But just to make sure that we're not triggering any of the MEPA review thresholds. So that, could be a part of the project. MEPA review can go on concurrently with, with the local permitting, but something obviously we need to take a hard look at as we, really outline everything that we need to do here, so.
I think it's good, basically.
The, where are we at here? It did say assisted living, yes, it does, okay, for independent, senior, and assisted living. So, the assisted living, would that be like a defined building or two, or are these the assisted living buildings, or
Pardon, sir?
the assisted living buildings? Would they be like defined as one of these buildings, or any one of the buildings, or would they be mixed?
For
The assisted
For
living?
assistant, sir, we are not defined yet.
You haven't defined that yet?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess the other question there is whether you mean a real assisted living that would have, you know, full-time, round-the-clock nursing and all of that?
That,
or-
we haven't, worked out the logistics, because that would be the medical team,
Yeah,
you know, proper, that will
yeah. If-
take over the charge, like, you know, Tufts or something, who
Yeah.
they would have to, because these days HMOs are, you know, they are moving all over. So if there is somebody who would take over that charge, you know, we would not touch that.
Well, that's what I was gonna
Yeah,
say, it's the
yeah.
management
Not-
of that kind of a
No,
facility
it would be
is very different
so
than an apartment.
definitely, I think it would be at that point, a building separate, if there
Yeah.
were many people.
That would have to be
mix
done
match, yeah.
differently, obviously, yeah.
I mean, and maybe it would be something like on this side where it is not connected.
Yeah,
the
if
other-
you could
Yeah.
get somebody, if you could get one of the assisted living
Buildings by
companies that
itself,
would be
yeah.
willing to run an assisted living
Right,
facility,
Yes,
that could be very helpful, because then you could have your retirement people. and-
Exactly.
And they would know that if they got to the point they needed
yeah.
more, they could move into that other
That's
building.
right,
I
without
agree.
really leaving
Without
home.
leaving.
You can't
Yeah.
mix them, yeah, I agree, I agree.
You know, but that's something I think would be amenable to as well. In fact, I think that would be a plus. It's
Very
not-
desirable,
absolutely.
but
That would be a
with proper
plus if we could get
guidance,
work done.
medical
Oh, yeah.
building. Associated medical building, what, दूसरे, हाँ, दूसरे लोग देंगे.
So I don't know, you know, and I know it's, you're dealing with the easement here and the overhead, but, it's just, you know, you mentioned Linden Ponds. Obviously, their model, and I think it's something that works well, is, all their buildings are connected. You don't have to go outside. And you're talking about a fair amount of program space. I mean, you know, maybe there could be 2 community centers. I don't know about how you connect these, but I could see that these could be connected fairly easily. If you could get a community center over here and connect these even just at grade,
Yeah, that's
then,
it.
you know, somebody who lives in this building can stay inside on a 0-degree day and walk over to the,
See Lucy over here and not be
or
outside.
or the auditorium or
I have
whatever.
seen the
purpose-
glass
purposely I-
walkways, you know, I
Purposely I
think in
like to have
Norwood or
the-
somewhere I went,
the
and they
building-
had
the building
glass
separately.
walkways.
Yeah.
So that there will be no noise, that will be quiet separately, and this section is very quiet, so that's the reason I had in my mind. For the
Again,
privacy and for the privacy and for the noise and all these things, so I like to keep it on this one side corner. But if you-
I guess, but if you're talking about, you know, you're talking about people 55 and over,
Yeah,
and you don't wanna have them get in their car to, if they live,
the
you-
community center was right here, sir, in the center,
but if they live here,
yeah.
and it's a very cold blustery day,
So it's in the.
once they get in their car, I can't see them, they could drive here, or they could go, once they're in their car, they could go somewhere else. Again, it's,
So we can.
I'm rather familiar with the Linden Ponds model, and it's a model of everything you need,
Right.
and you can walk to it.
Just listen. Yes, sir.
They must,
I
they
thought this was
also have like a
the
shuttle
location I
service
picked up
within,
this one because it
so
was
that
the center
is
for
also
all.
another thing.
More for going off campus, the grocery store, going to the
Okay.
movies or something, but it could be on campus too.
Yeah,
But again, the thought of, you know, just, again, if you're in a building and you can just walk from one end to the other and you're still indoors, you might have to take the elevator down and to the first floor, but you're not having to go outside to visit your friends. And I understand the quiet and the separation part of it, but we're not in Florida, so, you know.
I mean, I think that they can definitely play with those things. I don't think this
Yeah.
is.
It's not, and it's just, it's just to make sure you don't paint yourselves into a corner with the layout, and all of a sudden the topography doesn't work, you can't shift the building, and you're locked in, and then.
I hear you, believe me, yep, and, yep, we're gonna take a look at all of those
should be
things.
accessible, people friendly.
One
Yeah.
other question I had, would it be possible to put another access over here?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at
Yeah.
a lot of parking with one drive.
Yep,
We can do another cut on the street
It
side.
would seem like another cut there would be useful.
So this is a possible to make a.
Yeah,
another
that, I mean,
cut.
it's not very far.
Yeah.
You
No,
would
no,
have, you
yeah.
would have to go under the power lines again, but you'd be doing that here
So
anyway.
if you're looking for a 3-cut, we can do that 3-cut because it's all upland on that side, so.
Yeah, I think that would make some sense. It also would be, I think, a safety factor if there was ever any reason why one of these
Okay.
got blocked.
So
Yeah.
when we propose the definitive plan, we will have the cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these, I mean, this is a 100 scale plan.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's,
Oh, sure.
you know, that's a good, that's at least a quarter of a mile,
Talking
probably
about
1,000
the
feet.
cut here.
No, just
Yes,
from there,
I
yeah,
understand
you're
what you're
talking,
saying.
what do you-
Separation between them.
Maybe 200 feet? Looks like it's about 200
Plus it
feet.
makes sense with 3 clusters of buildings, 3
Yeah.
access ways.
So is north just the paved right? Is this
Straight up.
Straight up is well.
straight up is north? I think. Okay, all right. Okay,
Yeah.
now I get it, yep.
I think, I think from my point of view, the general concept is good.
No, I appreciate all the input and things like that. Yes, we definitely need to, it has to work, and we can't, well, if people won't come here if it doesn't work, and I certainly understand. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Pine Hills in Plymouth, but I'm not familiar with the Linden Pond, but it's the same type of thing where it's very self-contained. Honestly, you don't need, it has every amenities possible, restaurants and everything. You wouldn't have to leave. I don't know that we have that kind of space, but we can certainly play around with this.
Yeah, I think whatever of those amenities you can work into it clearly would be useful.
Yeah.
And with this number of units, it seems like it would be feasible.
I agree, yeah. I mean, there has to be something to attract people here.
Yeah, it can't just be apartments.
Right.
Right. I think, even an indoor swimming pool would be nice. I don't know whether you're going in that, what direction you're going as far as how upscale it's gonna be.
Even, and I don't know about wetlands and stuff like that, but even, you have the 2 buildings here with the other building on the right, if that other building, that way, you could make almost like a T, and then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Yep,
And-
there is some room back there.
And then you'd have a bunch of units, and you could have, if you wanted to have an indoor pool area for people to swim or whatever,
Yep.
I mean, that's.
Tennis court.
Well, that's
somewhere.
I was just gonna say that, this area back in here might be a good spot for tennis court, something where, yes, it would be a little bit of a walk, but if you're gonna go play tennis, you don't
Yeah.
mind a
Yeah.
little exercise anyways, but certain things like that, yeah, we would love to incorporate as many of those
The
elements.
new game is what, pickleball?
Pickleball.
Yeah, and smaller courts,
Yeah.
That's what they say.
In general, I think it looks very intriguing.
Okay. Good. And the relief isn't outrageous, hopefully, we're looking for. Okay.
Oh, good,
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you.
Next time he'll come with us.
So what's the next step for them? Come with a formal,
Yeah, they'll need to put together a formal application.
will they have to go to conservation as
So, yeah.
well?
They'll have to go to
Yeah.
conservation, yeah, to make
Okay.
sure that they're
Next
outside of
step.
all the, once they get their flagging
Next
done,
step.
they'll have to show it to conservation.
Conservation.
They may not need anything from conservation if they stay outside of the buffers.
Right, that's what we're trying to do it that way. But as we incorporate more and more of these program elements, it might be that we have to go. Which,
Probably want to talk to them anyway and just make sure that
absolutely.
they're happy that you don't need to.
Yeah, when we're flagging 50 acres of wetlands, it would be good to show them
Yes.
But, you know, even if you're not prepared and you wanna come back
Oh, yeah.
with any more updates or
Yeah.
anything like that, feel
Okay.
free to come back
Yeah.
on another informal session and. go
Sure,
from
I
there.
think, yeah, and I mean, I don't think we'll let it go any further than a couple months, and without an update would probably be.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't have to be a full-blown, everything crossed Ts, dotted Is when you come back. If you wanna come back and say, this is the direction we're going, we're thinking of putting this here, this there, that there.
Yep.
What do you think? I mean, we'd be more than,
Okay.
board is always happy to talk in that regard. That way, when you put your formal application together, there'll be fewer changes.
Surprise. Yep, absolutely, we'll
Okay, sir.
take that.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night, thank you.
Bye-bye.
I think we've done the agenda. We do have the minutes, I don't know whether, let's see, the ones on April 4th. Rick, thanks for coming by.
If you need to call me.
Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Keep me informed, so I can stay.
Yeah.
These things here.
Well, John is on both of these, but,
Well, I think, we could hold
You
off
can
on.
still
We
vote
could,
on it.
we could still vote on it, and then the other thing, if we wanted to wait, and I think down the road, I think we wanna have another meeting with,
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't sure what you were getting at. Yeah, so, we, for the Economic Advisory Board meets the third Tuesday of every month. And, at the next meeting, we have, Mark Babowski coming to discuss rezoning townwide. You know, we did the overlay district with Mark, and he came early on to, actually, I think it was the selectmen, to just sort of give us sort of a roadmap. Here's what you gotta do, you know, and then we did it. And we followed all of his cues, and it went, you know, to the planning board, and went through the process, and then to town meeting without a hiccup. I mean, I don't think there was a single vote against it.
no, he did a good job putting
Yeah.
it together and presenting it and everything.
So I think there's a lot of issues out there with our zoning in terms of lot size. I mean, I think there's probably a bunch of things.
Parking.
Yeah, and so we're bringing him in. He is coming to our June 21st meeting. And I wanted to invite the planning board and, you know, maybe it turns into a joint meeting, which would, because if you have three of you,
yeah,
then
maybe it posted,
it had to be posted.
whoever can make it.
And my goal would be to, you know, create the roadmap, go to town meeting in the fall for the funds, and then, depending on how extensive the work is, hopefully come back to town meeting in the spring with some rezoning.
That'd be good. Get the whole town rezoned, that'd be, I mean, it's been piecemeal for forever, I think. And I'm not sure there hardly ever was a comprehensive zoning, was there? Maybe.
I don't know.
If there was, it was a long time ago.
Well, now's the time then, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think that makes sense.
So it'd be fall of 2016 and then go to town meeting and.
Well, fall 2016, go to town meeting for the funding. Get
For the
money.
funding for Mark to write it.
To do the project, and then,
In the spring,
then
vote on it.
bring it back to town meeting. You know, he already has a, you know, a relationship with the town and with town meeting, frankly.
Right.
A very successful one, so.
And he knows, obviously, the areas that he's already worked on, it's just expanding into the rest of
And he's
the-
done this in many, many towns.
A lot of other places.
So,
Yeah.
it's a, hopefully it can be a smooth
I-
process.
I don't see a problem with that. I'd like to back up just a bit, though. We do have our positions posted through June 1st. I'd like to have a planning board meeting either the 7th or the 8th to interview whoever has shown interest in the positions. And then I'd like to have the planning board make a recommendation to the selectmen, possibly at that meeting, if not at that meeting, shortly after that meeting. And then you could get that on your
We get that right on our agenda.
meeting, to have a joint meeting to actually appoint sometime shortly after that. So if we schedule for 7th, Tuesday, Wednesday, either of those dates, good or bad for you guys?
Unfortunately, I forgot my calendar in the car, my phone in the car, so.
Okay.
But I'll have to wait and see what it works, I guess, well, with John. Right?
Well, this meeting would just be to interview, we have 2 people who have shown interest, if they're still interested after sitting through this tonight. And without having any formal interview process, if you guys want to introduce yourself just really quickly, that would be nice. And this is, we have one member of the board is not here tonight, but.
I'm Vincent Mentozzi. I've been a resident of the town since 2008. I actually bought my first house next to Wayne and lived there for 8 years. We just sold that house and bought 9 Bel Air Drive. So now me, my wife, and our 3 kids live on Bel Air Drive. I'm a Mass Maritime graduate, my facilities and mechanical engineering. Got a master's degree in facility management. And I'm a senior associate at an engineering firm in Boston that I do the commissioning for the group. I am the associate assistant director of commissioning for the firm. So I go through all over the country and make sure buildings and engineering design meets local codes and is installed the right way.
Dave Blanco, 3-year resident. I live on Country Way in Holbrook. I grew up in Randolph, right next door, so I know this area well. Mass Maritime graduate. I spent 5 years with Bond Brothers in construction management, 5 years with Harvard University managing their engineering group and their operations department, and I'm currently the director of facilities for Boston College. So spend my days in Chestnut Hill and commuting back and forth. So.
As I had told the group before, hopefully we'll find some people that have knowledge of buildings and can read plans and can understand drainage and all of those sorts of things. I think both of these guys have that kind of background. We may get other, it has been posted, no one else has responded yet, but the posting is open until the 1st, so if anybody else does submit, if you could tell them that they should come to that meeting when you decide which date. Do you want to decide tonight, or do you want to wait and do that by email?
We should decide tonight, and then just lock it in, and if I can't be here, then whatever. So
7th or 8th.
So
You
it's
can do it
either,
there, it doesn't matter to me.
Either of those nights
so the
more
7th
likely.
is a Tuesday?
Yes,
Tuesday or
Tuesday
Wednesday?
or Wednesday. You want the calendar?
So that would be just that on the agenda?
Well, as of right now, unless something else comes up, as of right now, I think that's the only thing we need to have on the agenda.
Just trying to jog.
So is there 2?
Either of those nights good or bad for you
one.
guys?
And then there's an alternate.
Yeah, night times are pretty open. I just put the kids to bed.
This would be at nighttime?
Yeah, oh yeah, so it'd be 7 o'clock on.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that for me, I would guess that Wednesday'd probably be the better night, but.
Okay. So let's
That's a
make it
guess.
for Wednesday the 8th.
The 8th.
Well,
Yeah, I don't go anywhere.
And please feel free.
Yeah, we have a selectmen's meeting that night.
You have a select meeting that night, okay, so.
But you have really two openings, right?
Well, if they will when I resign,
Right.
yes.
So is
One will be
this is the
full
fill-
seat and one will be
the alternate.
an alternate seat.
Right.
So I would like to get them both filled at the same
Right.
time. That way you've got a full board, so as these permit applications
Right.
start to come in, you've got a full board that has heard it from day one. And that's really, you don't want to get to the point, well, this guy can't vote on it because he wasn't in by the time the permit came in, that kind of thing.
And just for Dave and Vinnie's benefit, so the alternate is, really this board is it's really the ideas and the brainstorming and what's added, the value added to the conversation. I was on this board for, I don't know, 7 years, and I don't ever remember, I was an alternate for a lot of that.
Yeah. There's
It
no
really
difference.
doesn't matter, you just can't vote, but the votes are, I've never had a vote, never seen a vote that's really been split, so.
No. I voted once against something, but that's just me. But yes, you're right, and I had mentioned that to you before. The alternate position, there's only really a couple of differences. One is the alternate doesn't get voted in town elections. Whoever comes in the full seat, if they want to do it again, then they would have to take out papers and go through the election process. The alternate seat, and the way it has worked in the past, is the alternate has simply, assuming they wanted to remain, has just been reappointed by the selectmen after that process happens. With each election, we go through a process of determining the offices of the board, the chair, vice chair, the clerk, and that is done by the board after each election. So in this case, after the 2 appointments occur, there will then be a reorganization of the board. I'm chair, I won't be here. So somebody will end up being appointed chair, and the other officers will get appointed we do that ourselves. I'm gonna if you guys wanna take a look at those over a while, those are the 2 documents that we, basically, the rules and regs and the zoning rules are there. We're not the zoning officers, but zoning does come into play periodically. It's nice to have a concept of the zoning. We do get involved in the recommendations on changes in zoning. The overlay district that got put in came out of this board. And I'm assuming that the board is gonna have as much input in the new zoning changes.
I hope so.
And I think planning board holds the public hearing on that, right?
Yeah, it ends up being really the planning board's.
Yeah, so once we get to the point that happens, the planning board will hold the public hearing, and then, does the planning board write that article, or does the selectmen?
It was submitted by the
planning board, right? That's what I thought, yeah. So the article would actually get written to go to town meeting and presented by the planning board. With a little bit of luck, we'll have finance committee recommending it. Do you guys have any other questions that you'd like to?
I mean, as far as the seats go, we're best friends, so it really doesn't matter to us. If we are the 2 that are selected for the open seat, of who gets a full seat, who's the alternate. We're literally in each other's weddings, went to college together, worked together, so we live in the same town, we raised the same families together, so I mean, to us, it's just, we've been in the town, I've been in the town long enough. Dave, has a little bit younger family than mine, but our plan is if we're gonna be in the town, how can we benefit, and what can we do to help the town? Wayne's reached out to me a couple of times about getting involved in the town. Finally, I think once we decided on buying the new house, and staying in the town, it made my decision to come here a little bit easier, because my plan is to be in the town until pretty much I'm ready to retire, so. Or maybe if that gets developed, maybe.
I was gonna say, you can say that
There you go.
But I think it's really important to have some new perspective too on the board.
It is.
And also, we're at a very kind of important time right now. There's a lot of things starting to take place here in town, and I think it's good to be on board and, decide how you want your town to be. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, very much so. I think, and both of your backgrounds clearly are a plus from understanding construction, understanding facilities, understanding how things get built, being able to read a plan, those sorts of things that are useful. The one thing we do lack on the board is legal. We don't have an attorney on the board. A lot of towns have attorneys on their board. but we have a good attorney that we've been using that did the zoning work. He's really good, really knows his stuff. So I think that piece of it we can deal with. And as far as actual things like reviewing drainage calcs and all that, you won't be doing that. We hire people to do that, using review money that the applicants have to pay for, basically. There's an application, you'll see, if you read that thing, you'll see that there's a fee, both an application fee and a review fee. The application fee the town keeps, the review fee, if it gets used up, it has to be replenished. And the developers have to basically pay to have an engineer that we hire review all of that stuff. At some point along the way, depending upon the project, you may go out and just take a look, has something been done or whatever, but you're not gonna be in a position where you're gonna be out there with a transit or doing anything like that. But understanding what that means is a useful piece, I think, of what you'll bring.
Just one thought, something for the planning board to consider. I know you have your rules and regulations that I know was often discussed when I was on the planning board, how they were outdated and in need of...
Well, those have been...
They were
redone.
updated
Oh, they've all
in
done.
2014.
Excellent.
All done. That's what I just gave
In
them.
November.
The rules and regs, that one right there.
That was Galvin and Galvin, is that?
Yeah.
All right, because I thought we were gonna do it piecemeal, but I think, did we get it all done at once, or do we have any other areas that we were gonna revisit?
I think he did the whole thing. I mean, there were pieces like the trash thing.
The trash thing is still,
Yeah,
only-
those kind of little loose ends, but the actual document itself has been totally revised. We don't have any cut and paste stuff in it anymore. Like when you saw it, it wasn't even the same font.
I think the reason, and I think we purposely left the trash thing out because it was such a hot ticket item. We wanted it to pass, but the trash thing, that's still kind of hanging out there, and I thought we were gonna get.
Well, I mean, that's something that the board should take up again. It's an issue that some houses in town will have a junk car and a couple of old junk boats and 4 old, ski-doos or something that are just trash, essentially eyesores. We tried to get a change in the town bylaws to give more teeth to the building department to get rid of that kind of stuff. We really didn't anticipate a lot of backlash from it, and we got a lot, and it got voted down in town meeting. Probably because I wasn't quite as prepared as I should have been, not realizing that it was gonna be that controversial a subject. But that's what happened.
So back then, Wayne, and I wasn't on the board, but
Yeah.
did they look at homes that are vacant at all?
We were looking at primarily what's in the yard, not so much the empty house.
The receivership will take care of that. I mean, what we're working on with D'Ambrosio and Brown will help with
Yeah.
the vacant buildings.
The vacant building issue is separate, yeah. This was for just stuff people, we tried to come up with a way, well, if a vehicle's not registered and hasn't been registered for 6 months or something like that, that it can't be there. Those sorts of things, and we had a draft that we thought was pretty good. It didn't fly.
Well, yeah, and I think that, like some of the things that would come up, there's somebody over in Iraq and he or she is a war vet, and really their mom's watching their car while they're gone, it's not registered, you're really gonna do that? That's on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, there's a residential property that's got stacks of concrete forms and a stake rack parked in the driveway, and it's not zoned for any of that.
Right.
Or there's, the guy who builds 3 sheds, 4 sheds, 5 sheds to because he's a residential contractor or something, and it just gets out of hand. It just crosses over a line, and it's a very blurry line.
How do you define the line? And it became, so that's something you may see yourself getting involved with eventually.
I think we have to reopen that because it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I just, you know,
It
the
is a-
status quo is.
It's a loose end.
Yeah. So then, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's the rezoning of the entire town is kind of like big ticket item, and then maybe just revisiting our bylaws for the junk portion of it. And that's, did we have any other?
Well, no, we have to, the planning board will shepherd the whole thing through.
But I'm just trying to think of big ticket items we were.
That we were working on. Oh, yeah, no, that,
You know.
And I think the other, sorry, Paul, just so I don't lose my train of thought.
Yep.
We talked about, and I think we narrowed this down, but I don't know if we ever published it, was, like if this set of drawings was gonna go out for approval, here's the, review schedule for the town. So you have to call the civil engineer out at these stages, you have to call the.
no, I think that's in there,
Is it in the,
in our rules.
it's in the rules,
Right.
but it's almost like we wanna have it on a big stamp.
Oh, well, that, yeah, I mean, how it, yeah,
How
it is
you-
in there.
It's in there, but it's just a matter of we need to enforce it so that.
Right, the enforcement of what's in there is the key then. And that's
Yeah.
part of what now that we never had a good, at what point do they have to ask somebody to look at something? Kind of like you can't close the walls up until the electrical's been inspected if you're building a house. There was some lax and there were times that, particularly in drainage stuff, they'd get closed, before anybody looked at it. We do have a schedule in there now, and it's a matter that as we issue permits, we need to make sure that schedule of each time that it's gotta get looked at by our engineer. And we had a situation right down here that was a real pain in the neck. That was designed with a certain size pipe going out to connect to the street. When they opened up the street, they realized there was a concrete encased electrical line that they couldn't do it. They couldn't put the pipe through the way it was designed. So in the field, they just changed what they were gonna do, and what they changed to didn't have the same flow characteristics as the original design. So when they came back with their as-built stuff for us, it wasn't right. And we had to go through all kinds of stuff, and they had to redesign how the drainage worked,
We
because
literally had to push water uphill to go from a low.
they had to,
thing to go up. I mean, it was really
we had to
like
change things around.
crazy.
And we ended up coming up with something that was
Creative.
okay, probably a C, definitely not an A, but probably is okay. But we're trying to get away from that. We never saw it in the field. Our engineer never saw it in the field. And we should have. So that kind of, how that gets scheduled on each project is gonna be important to enforce what's in there, as opposed to just having it written down and no one doing it. We have a pretty good engineer that we use most of the time. Sean Hardy Engineering, it's a small company. A guy I worked with years and years ago at Green Environmental. He's pretty good, he's relatively inexpensive, he's very responsive, and has worked out well, so. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
No?
just
What you got?
Just looking at this, and again, this is one of those, we're gonna be looking at
Oh, Sid High.
traffic, and
Yeah.
we're gonna looking at fire, and then obviously Conservation Commission's gonna come in.
Yeah.
And some of this is just, out of our jurisdiction,
Yeah.
that they can do what they wanna do there, but, it just seems a little concerning that, Mr. Sidharth is making suggestions like, I want this to be private, and it's like, well, private's good, but if you're 55 or 60 or 70 even, you want privacy, but you also want to be able to get from point A to point B without having to go outside. And, you know, so I guess I'm just gonna be very interested in seeing how this is developed and that we don't end up with a dog on our hands. It's like,
I agree.
you know, yeah, it might be 55 and over, but
If you can't rent them,
if you can't rent them, then it's like,
if people don't wanna live there.
they don't wanna live
It has
there.
to be set up so that people 55 and over are gonna wanna be there.
Yeah,
And I think that that's a big part of, that list that he gave us has a whole bunch of just wish list stuff on it, is all that
it's
is.
all fine, but
But I mean, he's gonna have to come back with some real design, particularly if they're really talking about assisted living. That's a whole different animal than.
Yeah,
I wouldn't really hold them
Well, I'm not holding them to that.
to that, you know.
No, but if they want that,
if they want that, it's
then
just a
that's a
whole other,
different,
Right.
then we're gonna have to look at who's gonna run that.
Right.
They're not gonna run
No,
that.
no, no, it's a whole different.
Yeah, how that gets managed is a different animal. And then you'd probably wanna get health department involved in everything.
but that's who they're competing against. They're competing against facilities that have that, because they realize that 55 and over goes to 75 to 80, healthy spouse.
Yep.
You know, the
Yep.
other spouse is, you know.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot, awful
There's a
lot
there's an
to it.
awful lot to look, this is a big project. That's a lot of units.
Yeah.
You know, when you start thinking about how many units that'd be, that's
And they,
not small.
they talked about cutting that down a little bit at
Well,
the economic meeting.
right.
You know,
Cutting it back a little makes some sense,
You know, it's just,
just to fit in the amenities.
Mm.
They're gonna have to do something.
see, even that clubhouse there, for what they're talking about, like, this is too small.
I know.
oh, that's like, yeah.
There's nothing there,
Yeah,
there's
we
no
were parking
swimming
there for
pool.
like, I don't know how many hundreds of people in a building that big to
Right,
hang
you
out
know,
in.
so that's not gonna,
No,
you know.
they're gonna have to
And-
come up with something.
We see that, but, you know, try to work with them and see what they come up with.
Understood. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what Conservation Commission comes up with. You know, also just this big sea of parking out here. It's
I know.
like it's a mall. I'm just
I
thinking,
know.
like, what do
I
you,
don't like that
nobody
either.
want, you don't know which building you're gonna live in if you wanna park here.
So you can say,
It's like-
75-year-old person gonna park here and have to walk over to the.
With their groceries.
Yeah, with their groceries.
That's something they're gonna have to relook at. He said he didn't like how the parking was laid out.
But Sid Hart did, or the
The
engineer?
Have the brain.
But that's what that's why I wanted them to come back again with another.
You were right in
informal-
saying
Yeah.
that,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Don't just come here and have a hearing. I think that's a bad thing for this project.
Yep, no, you're right. It may go back and forth another 2, 3, 4 times before they come up with a
I
firm,
think it really should.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know, and even if they were gonna make this area assisted living, maybe you sit on this situation, this assisted living, get this up and running, then have an outside company come in.
And actually
and-
do it, design the
and do it
assisted
the
living,
way it
because
should.
it's a different building.
Right.
It's a very different building if you're gonna talk real assisted living. You have to have like
Handicapped,
nurses stations, you have to have,
Handicap bathrooms.
you've gotta have special kind of bathrooms where you're gonna actually, these walk-in things where people have, and in fact even carried in, these sling chairs and all of that sort of thing.
you have to be concerned about elopement, that they'll just walk out the door and not even know where they're going.
You gotta
There's
have
a lot of-
security, it's a very different animal.
Nurses, aides, assisting,
Yeah.
aging.
Very different animal. It's a 24-hour, there's gotta be somebody there, you know, somebody, there has to be med controls. Even, you know, even if it's not a full nursing facility, they still keeps the meds locked up and they bring them out at the right time, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a different animal.
Again, I mean, obviously, they have a lot of rights, just
Yeah.
as of right, but
Yeah.
again, we wanna make sure that
Yep.
we,
Gets the
For-
best thing for the town. Like you said,
Yeah.
we don't wanna, we don't want this to be a dog down there that can't support.
Can't function.
Yeah, and they come back begging, well, let us open it up to everybody.
right, yep.
And then we're in a lot.
Then we got another stack of cookie cutters.
Yeah.
Without, you know, with no, you know, it's just all, yeah.
But I mean, what I was kinda getting at this, not that, you know, you move this thing over this way, you have like a T shape here.
Yeah,
you know,
oh, there are
then you
better
can
ways
work-
to,
Yeah, you can work on that.
once they
Oh, but
know the
this is their,
wetland.
this is their all their wet, this is all wet.
That's their wet, okay.
Yeah, but I would say that, you know, both these can be revisited. This is kind of a tough this could certainly be the extended care,
If they
if you
do
want to
that.
call it that, if they do that. But like you said, you get these up and running and vibrant, and then you have this all drawn in the drawer, ready to go.
But we were, and like, not to spoil this situation, but we were talking maybe down the road, when the school's up and running, the Kennedy School, maybe that becomes where the school sits now, maybe that becomes assisted living, where you have and we've started that process a little bit, reaching out to people that they build it, they design it, they run it, boom.
Yeah.
And then on the back end of it, at the Kennedy, they talk about maybe that's where the DPW eventually goes,
Yeah.
and maybe off the side, there's an access road to the high school, and you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that fills up that Kennedy,
And then
possibly.
I could see where, then it's like, you have a facility here, we have a shuttle that'll take you to, if your spouse or friend ends up.
But again, that becomes a little difficult to put into our
You can't put
rules.
into our rules,
Right.
it's a selling point, but then you can't enforce it, like, what if this thing tanks, or what if
And
this
they
thing
stop
tanks?
the shuttle bus.
Yeah,
you
the
know.
shuttle bus, nobody's riding it. It's
And the
not
other
money.
thing, I will remind you guys, is that Siddharth doesn't always do what you ask him to do.
Well, I thought we were here to talk about a gazebo, but then I didn't wanna.
That never got,
I know.
he put a small subdivision in, decided he wanted this gazebo in the middle of his
Cul-de-sac, right?
cul-de-sac that wasn't approved. He put it in without electrical permits, without water permits. We've been told to take it down 8 or 10 times over the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years. It's still there.
So I mean, that's, so who goes after that? I mean, that's where we need to make sure.
Building department is supposed to.
Okay.
We communicated with building that it wasn't part of our approved plan.
And that's where I think that if he wants another permit, then he needs to do what he needs to do.
Well, you
Before he
might
goes-
have a lever there to,
You know what I mean?
to get that finally taken care of.
You know?
Yeah,
That-
but
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know how
Well,
long ago that was.
It was one of those things that there were no inspections along the way. On the other hand, if he built it after everything was done, I'm not sure what we could have done anyway.
yeah, but
It was definitely a building
he
department.
essentially, his punch list was still open, and that thing was in place. So Sean was
Yeah.
still going out there to do site visits
That's true.
to close out the project.
I know.
And all of a sudden, here's this gazebo that has power.
But all the houses they had already gotten occupancy permits.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was not right. But anyway, anything else?
Nope.
Everything will make a motion?
Motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
I did notice